A very good morning to you and welcome to the Business Lens on Rapid Television, Abuja. It is great to have you with us on this edition where we look at the numbers, the figures, and how it directly affects you and your businesses. My name is Divine Alex. So let's begin with the key business trends that matter right now, starting from the headlines. Nigeria is ramping up efforts to boost domestic gas supply, with NLNG committing 100% of its LPG production to the local market as regulators push reforms to meet rising demand and improve investor confidence in the upstream sector. And to the next, OPEC Plus is moving to stabilize the global oil market, with Saudi Arabia, Russia and 5 other producers increasing output by 188,000 barrels per day for June, even as the group faces internal tensions following the United Arab Emirates' sudden exit. Away from that story, we move to where Nigeria has recorded an estimated 5.13 trillion naira oil revenue windfall in just 2 months, as crude prices surged far above the 2026 budget benchmark of $64.85 per barrel, driven by tensions linked to the US and Iran crisis. And still on the issue, Nigeria's debt to the World Bank has climbed to $19.89 billion as of December 2025, which is up 11.7% year on year, which is now accounting for over 38% of the country's total external debt. This highlights a growing reliance on concessional and development financing. Next is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has initiated a fresh shake-up in Nigeria's power sector, nominating Joseph Tegbe as Minister of Power and appointing a presidential task force that is led by Lanre Babalola as the government moves to accelerate reforms after months of persistent electricity challenges. Away from that one to the market, we have Nigerian Exchange Group has reported a strong first quarter performance, with revenue more than doubling to 7.22 billion naira and profits after tax rising 94% to 4.09 billion naira, driven by increased trading activity and stronger investment income. We will look at the story and at these stories and more after the break. My name is Divine Alex. Stay with us. You are welcome back. This is still the Business Lens from Rapid Television, Abuja. My name is Divine Alex. From oil windfalls and rising debt exposure to power sector shakeups and global energy volatility, today's stories point to a recurring theme. Nigeria is earning more in some areas, reforming in others, but we are still facing structural pressure beneath the surface. Oil revenues are beating budget benchmarks, yet borrowing is rising. We have the power reforms that are being reset again, yet we have electricity challenges persist. And globally, shifting oil dynamics and capital flows are redefining where Africa stands. So the big question is, are these signs of progress or signs of an economy, that is still trying to stabilize itself? This is what we are going to be unpacking with our analyst. Good morning, economist Abiola Dekunle from Keto Markets, and good morning, Daniel Efa from the Global Business Analyst. Good morning. It's great to have you in studio today. I think we've had back-to-back episodes where you were just disappearing away from the studio. So it's great to have you here.
That was an allegation.
So how was your weekend?
Our weekend was good.
Oh.
We declined to comment.
We declined to comment. Okay, so let's start from the first one. Nigeria recorded a 5.1 trillion naira oil windfall in 2 months. This is driven by prices far above, initially they said 64, 65. Now we have it, shooting up to over $120 per barrel. Now, why does Nigeria continue to experience fiscal pressure despite earning significantly above its oil price benchmark? Let me start with you, Daniel.
Because Nigeria lives beyond its means. There's no other way to explain it.
Okay.
We complain that what has been shrinking our fiscal composition has been subsidy payment. We stopped subsidy and we started making the money outrightly.
Okay.
And now we simply just went to behave like a family man that simply just got an inheritance and went to, and instead of upgrading his family, also to buy 4 cars, and that's basically what we are doing. we spend so much now. Some national level, they have so much revenue, so much made from the windfall of lack of subsidy payment, and now with this, but yet it would not reflect because the way it's meant to be. The whole idea of a subsidy is to represent some form of welfare package to your people, right? So if you remove that sort of welfare, the welfare still has to be there, but in another form. You can't take that money and do something else with that money, right? If the money is dedicated to make people's life better, you have to deliberately, and that was why the last administration that tried removing in 2012,
okay,
right? Even when the whole protest happened and they removed partially, they set up what we call a SHOPI, I mean subsidy removal, something program or investment program that said, okay, any money that comes from here goes directly to here. I was having a conversation with someone. I met someone from NEL. Sorry, was it NEL Fund? Sorry. This TET Fund, right, earlier.
Okay,
and TET Fund is a project that helps universities, right, or college of education across the nation from the education tax collected. So 2% of education tax that is collected from corporate individuals or corporate bodies are dedicated directly to that project. So that means that if this year they collected 10 billion, 10 billion is shared across board. That is a welfare package. That is what is meant to help to assist the schools in giving them infrastructure, right? So while you remove subsidies, why was that same program not done that says, okay, this we've removed this amount of money from our fiscal burden, but this is what we are going to be using for. This is going to be used to maintain all federal roads, so Nigerians can see that, okay, I'm not paying 1,400 for fuel, but see what I am getting in return. That means that they are building my road, so that means the life makes sense. But now what you did instead, you collected all this money, distributed the money to governors, right, who were just enjoying themselves. And particularly enjoying themselves, who has done anything since then? Who are the people going to now hold on to? So when you say, yes, I should hold on to my governor, but then the point was that why the government was the one paying the subsidies in the first place? They were not the one paying the subsidies, so why not just take out the money and use this money for what it was meant for, which is for the welfare of the people, to better their lives, because the essence of governance is bettering their lives. So we just keep seeing the figures, right, of how much the government is making. That is not, the government is not a bank. Government is not, your money is not meant to be making money. That is not the job. So if you have so much things you spend on, particularly your staff, that means you are doing nothing. Because how can you have a company, a bakery, that's why 100 people and you're producing Nintendo of bread every day? That is waste of resource. That is what we are doing.
It might be big bread.
Big bread. Okay, let me come to you, Mr. Abiola. Now, where do you think that this disconnect is coming from exactly? Because we, like he said, we make more money, figures are everywhere, but it's looking like we're not even making actual progress when it comes to infrastructure. The
disconnect is coming from the political angle.
Okay.
Because people have representatives spread across the country in the guise of senators and honorables from the House of Representatives. So the whole idea is I'm meant to approach my honorable or my senator and say, what's going on with XYZ? Why have we not been able to access this and this? In the same light, I can approach my local government chairman, or in case of Abuja, area council chairman, and also demand for these things. Now, because of lack of consequences, they say where there is no law, there is no sin. So I'm not saying there's no law in Nigeria. I'm saying that it's like a pseudo situation.
Okay.
So if at the end of the day, I can take money from Daniel and do whatever I want with it, and Daniel will never ask me, why should I give any report to Daniel? So when people start coming out en masse and start demanding for accountability, start demanding for transparency, then in return, their honorables too and their senators and representatives are feeling they know they cannot even go back home without giving them. So they will have to go back to the chambers and say, see what my people are saying, we need to give them report. But because this has happened for so long, there's been a divorce between the Nigerian populace and the government. In fact, even the governance. Because people feel that whatever is going on there does not matter to them. In fact, at some point, an average Nigerian felt that whatever money is coming to Nigeria, it's in their mind, does not belong to them. they feel that it belongs to the government, not understanding that the government is a representation of you.
Of us.
So at the end of the day, the political side has to be taken care of, because it's not a situation of, if it's a situation of they pump $100 billion into a particular project or into a particular welfare, whatever, and we're not seeing results, then we can start looking at the economic side of it. But in a situation where nothing is even being done, the money is not even being released to the proper channels, then it's really not an economic matter at that point.
It's not an economic matter. Okay, let's look at the fact that Nigeria's debt to the World Bank rose to $19.89 billion, which is now making up to over 38% of external debt. Now, if we're making a lot of money and then we still, owe debts across, if revenues, actually oil, right, are improving, why is Nigeria still increasing its reliance on multilateral borrowing? Let me start with you, Daniel.
Okay, so personally, right, I don't have issues with World Bank debts because, number one, they are usually low interest debts. They have longer tenure. They are tied to developmental projects, right? So it always makes sense, right, to get loans from the World Bank. However, this is the problem. This is the problem. If we do a register of the entire debt stock, right, the purpose of each of the World Bank debt, whether it's on education, on poverty eradication, on anything, right, children, what do you call it, children feeding, any of those list of
projects
all those programs.
Handle.
How many of them can we say these are the reports gotten and these are the effective? This is what it has done for us.
Yeah, the completion rate.
It is not. There's nothing bad in those. So by the time you see the paper conversation around, okay, this is what we are collecting. This is, for example, part of those debt stock is aftermath of subsidy, the conditional payments to the poor families that might be affected by the subsidy removal. Where are the reports? Can we have a register, right, a PDF that you can click and see every individual by their names and probably their BVN? No, of course, BBM might be, and maybe you can start the last three or something. That just shows that you can confirm. That can say this local government, this is so people that got you. That you can confirm that truly this is what you did.
Sorry to cut you, Daniel. If I'm going to spend 1 billion naira on a project, I should be able to dedicate 100 million naira for its accountability. It's just normal. If I'm going to spend 1 billion, okay, I should be able to. So it even goes beyond PDF. There should be a proper website where people can either register themselves as being vulnerable, people will check later on, and where people can check. Like I said, there was an episode we looked at this thing, that people can actually check that, okay, Mr. XYZ took, but you don't even need to put the full information out there. You can be start somewhere, exactly. but you have an idea that in this local government, 30,000 people were able to access this, but there's nothing like that. So at the end of the day, Nigerians are the ones that bear the brunt of most of the maybe negative economic policy, like removal of subsidy, what's it called, the floating of the naira. We are the ones that bear the brunt. But when the returns come, it doesn't come to us. It goes to the government.
Which is really critical. Now, are these loans funding growth, critical sectors, or simply helping government manage short-term fiscal gaps?
Okay. Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
So how are these loans funding growth critical sectors or simply helping government manage short-term fiscal gaps?
The money goes to the government. Now, what the government decides to do with it at the end of the day is still in the hands of the government. And as we can see, so far, we've not really been able to see a lot of infrastructural growth. Because I was discussing with Daniel, I think, last week, and I was saying that if each administration that comes does 3 to 4 railway connects, by now, for the past 20 years till now, by now we would have at least maybe 30 railway connects. But if you look at Nigeria now, what we have is just predominantly 3. The one from Abuja to Kaduna, the one from Lagos via Abeokuta to Ibadan, then the one from, I think, Warri to... that's it, and it's a shame that a country, the most populous, black country in the world, that might be the 4th most populous country in a couple of years, have only 3 short railway systems. So when you look at the infrastructure and you look at the income coming in, it's like an oxymoron, because I cannot be receiving so much money as a person. Let's say my salary was increased from 50 naira all the way to 1,000 naira, and there's nothing to show for it. Then what is the point of the increase? Because one of the sweet things about increasing income is that you can use it to get more income. True. That's why they say the rich keeps getting richer. It's not because they just want to get richer, it's because they have more capital to make it easier for them to get richer. See, a country like China will continue to be better. Because at the point they are now, I'm sure there is even so much revenue. In fact, if you want to go to a futuristic city, go to China. They are the ones that can really be said to say, oh, we have futuristic cities, because they have so much and they are leveraging on it to get so much. But you come to Africa, not just Nigeria, and you see people getting so much revenue from oil especially, or from natural mineral resources, and you cannot really point that this is the development coming from it.
Which is really sad. Yes. Now, let's look at global oil dynamics. Oil prices surged above $120 per barrel, while we have the OPEC Plus situation, but now they are just supply and geopolitical tensions are still high because of the whole situation. I think I even saw a lot of tweets on X that was talking about the fact that UAE exits OPEC, and it's going to, you know, affect us in some ways. But now, how is Nigeria positioned to truly benefit from global oil price spikes? Daniel?
So I think that what's happening in the OPEC dynamics is something that they did not envisage. I think that's why they did not respond so far. That is why everybody just trying to see what's happening, number one. And also the fact that as it stands, there's nothing you can do. Whatever UAE is planning is in the future. Strait of Hormuz is still blocked, and there's still a difficulty in passage, right? My only issue is with countries that are under the OPEC Plus, that you don't have any Strait of Hormuz affecting you, but you are not producing much. And the case study is Nigeria. We are seeing...
we're in OPEC direct. Are we in OPEC Plus?
Well, yes, we're under OPEC Plus, but yet, you get, for example, imagine, we say we made 5 trillion from just this windfall in the last 2 months, but we are about 300,000 short of our quota. Right, this is kind of time whereby we should be the one asking for the 158,000 to get to 2 million, so that we can make more money from this. So, for me, yes, we are making money. Yet there's this 5 trillion extra, but we should be making way more than 5 trillion, and that is because we can produce way more than we are producing. So, what should be the conversation right now, even for the Minister of Petroleum, is that what is happening? Why are we not increasing our quota to balance out what is happening globally? Because what is happening globally right now is that one way or the other, non-OPEC members who really don't care about pricing are basically filling up the supply conversations, where the OPEC guys that are the one taking the cuts whenever there's a cut, are the one managing the supply chain conversations. But yet, now you are not making money. And that is a very critical conversation, because we don't know how far or how long this Iran issue will go. Because for the fact that we are already having over $100 per barrel for over a week now, and I'm seeing it now is surging back to 120 again. So that means that this particular intensity is serious. That means these prices might even drive beyond $120 per barrel in the short term, or even in medium term. So it has already changed the dynamics for almost every OPEC member this year alone, that prices might average $80 to $90 per barrel, which is a lot beyond their benchmark. And why are we not optimally producing oil? That is the real conversation right now, because when you look at everybody is trying to pump. Even Saudi Arabia that is not able to sell its oil is pumping more, because everybody sees opportunities in high prices.
Sorry to cut. The thing is that if you want to understand oil a little bit more, crude oil especially, you understand that the vessels that transport crude oil, they move as slow as a bicycle. That is how slow they move. Meaning that the real effect of closing the Strait of Hormuz is just starting. Because when they closed up, the tankers that left, some of them are just arriving at their destination now. So that gap has not been seen yet. We are just entering into the real scarcity now. If they open the Strait of Hormuz today and we start having new vessels go by, there's still that gap of about 3 months in between that nothing is going to get anywhere. And this gap is what people like countries like Nigeria is meant to really capitalize on. But you know, here we are.
How do we even get around making sure that we maximize every opportunity that we should lay hands on to make more money and maybe force the government to actually utilize those funds? Let me start with you, Economist Abiola.
It's just the willingness to. There's nothing else. It's the willingness of the government to say, we want to make as much money as possible from this. I don't believe there's anything Nigeria or Nigerians cannot do.
Okay.
I'm not even saying this because I'm a Nigerian. I wish I was saying this as a foreigner, because if you look at Nigerians closely, you see this tenacity, this can-do spirit. It cuts across all the tribes in Nigeria. You see a Nigerian somewhere on the tracks, he would rather die on that track than lose. You see him in a boxing ring, he's there. You see him in an academic research lab. They are there, they're everywhere. You see in the military, it's the same thing. So we just need the willingness to say, okay, we want to do this. If Nigeria wants to move their production to 2.5 million barrels, I tell you within the next 1 year it is possible. Okay. I was coming just now and I saw one construction that has been going on for about 3 or 4 months. And the construction is almost done. And I'm like, are they working 24 hours? And it seems so. That one means between the road, I don't really know what it is, but there's a filling station there. The thing has been going on day and night. There are people always there. So what you can or cannot do depends on what you think. Because if you think you can or cannot do it, then you have exactly what you think. So if we actually want to do it as a country, I think we can do it. So it's just the willingness of the government to say, okay, everybody stop what you're doing. We are taking this to 2 million barrels by our captain, which is President Tinubu, and you'll see that it will happen.
Do you think that there's any other challenge that's behind the scene that is, maybe stopping them or delaying them from actually stepping up? Because if we look at this then as a gap that we're supposed to make more money from, and right now it's looking like the country can use as much funds as possible, and somehow they're not stepping up to utilize these opportunities. What do you think could be the challenge from the government side?
I think it has to do with efficiency and corruption, right? Because there's a correlation between our low output, right, and high prices of crude, right? When you check the last time, we also had high prices of crude in 2021. Russian-Ukraine crisis, we were barely doing 1 million barrels, right? But in fact, there was a report that came out then, that NNPC came out to say that people were plugging pipes, basically plugging pipes.
As if it's water.
Like you get so, you would what's the word? You would crime, stealing would happen when there are valuables around, right? And that is expected, right? So it is now left for the person in charge of the resource, right, to ensure that is the same time he or she will buff off security and increase effectiveness. So if you're pushing in 1%, you get effort into something to make it work. At that time when prices are high, when everybody is on it, you would push on 50% because you know that you know what you are trying to. So I buy to his point that it is a function of readiness. When we are ready to do it, we will do it. Because if we have done, I remember last year we're celebrating 2 months or 3 months and I was saying that, and I was saying it that you can't celebrate something that it is not a trend.
Enough,
exactly. So because I know that if prices go higher, this is what happens. It suddenly they just drop. So the question now is that what happened? How did we meet up with 1.8 million barrels last year? And it's 2 months in last year. What happened? Is it that the ground was better? What was the question? What was it? Was it that
the ground was fertile?
You get so whatever happened, whatever is the buffer, is that particular buffer. It means that someone somewhere, right, is just making sure that thing doesn't happen. And if government is ready to make it happen, it will happen.
It will happen, which means we have it, but somehow we are not able to do that. And if we did it, that means we can do it again. Now let's take a swipe to the electricity sector. Now Tinubu has appointed a new power minister and also created a task force to look towards making sure that we have stable electricity like they have been saying. But at what point do you think leadership changes in the power sector, at what point does it stop being a reform and start becoming a cycle of reset with actual results? Mr. Abiola.
Well, the power story has been going on for decades, and sometimes changing the head, can spark a whole lot of changes, because I believe everything rises and falls on leadership. Okay. But I also feel that the system itself the way it is structured, makes it maybe a little bit difficult for us to be able to put this matter to bed at once. Okay. Now, let's quickly look at some examples. I remember in 2001 when GSIM came into Nigeria, mobile calls. Before then, it was the wired stuff. And I remember then there was a particular telecoms that said that, oh, this per second billing is not possible. We can only do, I remember then it was 15 naira per minute then. If they just say, hello, and somebody just pick your call and you cut it, 50 naira is gone. And people were complaining bitterly. I remember then they said, no, it's not possible. Then other telecoms came and they were able to do per second billing, and that was the end of that. And then we had other telecoms that also came. Now, when you turn a certain type of market, you go into a free market, allow people compete naturally, you will see that there are some discussions that you will not be having again. Then you now start having new set of discussions. I also feel that to a very large extent, that should be done to the power sector. There should be a sort of decentralization that will be done, that it will make all this discussion of there's power, there's no power, it will be gone forever.
But there's decentralization now. The market has been opened, but somehow...
Can you change who you are buying electricity from? That's okay, I don't want this supplier anymore. Please, hook me to supplier B. Can you do that? You can't. Anything they give you is what you take. It has even gotten to the point that people, they'll say meter is free, but meter is not free. I can speak for myself. I paid for my meter, even though I'm not the owner of the house. And when I'm not going to go with that meter. It's not my property, but I paid for it. So when I'm talking about decentralization, it has to be 100%. It has to be open. People need to be able to say, this is what we want, this is what we want, and they will get it. And if everybody notices that people are gravitating towards a particular service provider, then other ones will have to pick up or they will go out of business. It's the same thing with almost every sector that has succeeded. Once you allow people to compete freely, you will see that those that will benefit will be the customers at the end of the day.
Okay, so now we have agreed that there is structural issues. Now, what structural issues beyond leadership do you think is preventing stable electricity supply in Nigeria, Daniel?
I think it starts from leadership. Okay, because then I think that yes, there has been a lot of missteps. All right, I think there's been a lot of missteps when it comes to power, particularly from breaking down the power holdings to the GENCOs. I think there was a lot of poor restructuring done there. And personally, I've always echoed that I think there needs to be, everybody needs to first stop working. Like let's examine your books first, like, because there is so much inefficiencies that from collection, it's as if Nigerians are not paying. That's what it looks like. Right? Generation will say no. You people are not making enough money, so we're not going to give you a lot of power. The ones from the plants, they will say there's a gas issue from their GENCOs are the ones that are still generating in terms of gas, and they say the gas producers will say you are not paying for the gas. So I don't get the concept, right? How will you plan something and it was not effective? So how was it happening when it was power holding? Were they just absorbing the losses? Like, those are things that need to really be out to the fore in terms of conversation. Like
they need to plot where does revenue get missing?
Exactly. Where
is it from the gas to GENCO? Is it from GENCO to disco? Is it from disco to retailers? Where does the money get missing?
The government keeps pumping in money. Now the government has about how many trillions to pay to just balance this business. A business that is
but that's the money they were being owed.
That is the money that has not been paid. No, that's money they were being owed in supply, not necessarily government agencies doing, but that's another different conversation.
That's a different conversation, exactly.
So that inefficiency is too much. That doesn't. It requires a breakdown. It requires everybody first down to everybody stop working. Let us analyze.
But let them know of the light right there.
Because now we've done. We said that we've signed off it for you from exclusive lease. Now on concurrent, state government can generate their power. But why are we still hooked to national grid? Those are the conversations, and that is why I personally still feel that we are not ready to solve the power problem, even with the new minister. Why? The previous power minister is an accountant. Best bet in understands project management, right? Yes, he should understand efficiency when it comes to getting things done. But then, power is a technical space. Just like petroleum. that you cannot employ an accountant to run a petroleum business. It's not possible. Right? Same thing is happening this time around. What we are employing is a project manager, someone that, yes, is experienced, very experienced on a global level. But power is too technical for anybody that has not taken up any position in the power sector to do it. The same way we have our NLNG that is being that we are taking people from Wando Shell to come and manage. That's the same thing we should be doing with power. Because that person should be able to sit down with these power guys and tell you, Baba, what you are doing there doesn't make sense. This is because he knows the space. So now we are still back to the same question. This person is only coming to look for how can Nigeria government make more money from the space. That's what the person is looking out for. And how we can reduce what we are currently spending there. It will not still solve the efficiency required that this power is both a resource and a value-oriented product infrastructure for the people to enjoy. So we are not, when I just started and look at it, I was like, well, let's see. Now we don't just have the power minister, we now have another advisory board again, right, to set up. So is it another medium to waste a lot of money? Because if you are getting an advisory board as soon as you're having a minister, it means that you don't trust the minister to get the job done, because whatever the minister is doing is meant to do is what that advisory board is doing. So it's a very, very funny time, and I feel like we need, except maybe the president has a plan to employ a minister of state for power that is a power consultant, actual electricity consultant, maybe. But until then, I don't see us really solving this problem yet. Once
and for all. Okay, let's take a swipe to the markets. NGX Group posted strong growth, with revenue up 103% and profit up 94%, showing rising capital market activity. Now the question is, does strong performance in the capital markets reflect real economic growth, Daniel? I want to come back to you because you are more on the market level. Then I will also take his opinion.
Okay, so to be honest, all right, I think we need something going right for us at the moment, and I think the market is doing that. We cannot take away whatever is happening with the market, and we saw the results from NGX, so showing that, of course, NGX is just a platform, so transaction fees is what they are really, and that has really increased, right? We are making over 100%. Transaction from last year to this year has gone over 100%, about almost 2 trillion right now. It was about 1 trillion last year. So you can imagine the kind of activity happening there. Fantastic. My concern is this: is it reflective, right? Is those funds going into the NGX? Is it spread out? Hope it is not concentrated within it's 5%, 90% of people, 95% of people that as soon as these people pull out their funds, everybody's bleeding, right? So that is my own concern. But if it's about the growth and how it is helping the businesses listed to keep surviving, makes sense. Because then, for it to become actual economic growth, because it is not tied to economic growth. Because then we've seen a lot of data that says that talks about does strong market performance affect real sector. It's not a direct correlation, because you know why? They are only pricing assets. They are only buying prices of assets increase or decrease, right? But then, because these companies will now have increase in share prices, they can leverage this probably to get loans, to get this and that, and the individuals also. You're able to make money from market. You can go back to your real sector to help you with. So those are the conversations. But in terms of, would I take actual economic growth over market growth? I would take actual economic growth, because then what it means is that you can have more people that are able to consume more, who can then eventually even invest in your stock market in the future. So that is where we are, but let's just take this win and
let's just take this win. Yeah. Now my question is, economic survey, who is truly benefiting from this market expansion? Is it institutions, maybe foreign investors, or maybe the average Nigerian who is looking to throw in money somewhere and maybe get something at the end of the day?
All of them are benefiting, but in different percentages. Okay. I think that the largest, by a very short gap, might be foreign portfolio investors, followed by indigenous companies, then a distant third, individuals in Nigeria that are actually just investing on their own. And while Daniel was talking, I was thinking about what he was saying, and I would have loved if in a situation where a company XYZ share goes from 50 naira all the way to 80, 90 naira. For that to actually translate in the long term to business expansion for that company and for them to be able to maybe employ more and push more into the real sector. But we all know that usually that is not the case. A company, goes from 50 naira to maybe 80, 90 naira. At the end of the day, that profit or that money that comes to that company is usually doesn't go into expansion. It goes into profiteering, like profiting, giving to shareholders and all those things. So, well, to answer your question at the end of the day, I think we have more FPI still, but I'm still looking forward to a situation where we have much more coming from inside. Like we said last year while we were looking at this in November, I said that FPIs sometimes are tricky and there's volatility around it, because if they move out suddenly, then you see that the NGX can just be in shambles. And you can never compare FPIs to, the local companies, because one will want to invest for the longest time, and one is just let's do 1 year, let's do 6 months, and let's get out.
And one thing we must all notice that we say it's in markets, whatever goes up must come down, right? So as much as we're excited, the NGX has performing, doing over 43% already this year, there's a tendency it can also do the same. So people that are excited right now, you have to also understand that markets can also dip, right? In fact, the faster it goes, rises, the more it can dip. It's not a I'm not trying to make
the taller they are, the harder they
exactly.
fall.
I'm not trying to make people scared, but I'm trying to make people take notes, right? We've had this kind of jump before, and 2008, everybody, so it is just like what happened with Bitcoin also. It was rushing towards 100,000 as if there was something it was looking out for. It crossed very well, 120, right? But then by the time it's so the reason why that kind of jump can happen and can come down at the same time is because there's a concentration risk in that space, and that is where the real fear is, that there might have to be, for the government to make it right, there might have to be a cap on foreign portfolio investment that comes into the NGX. Right? Let it be Nigerian businesses that can prefer to hold their stocks for as long as possible, a year, 2 years, 3 years. FPIs are not planning to hold. They are coming to come in, make money and stock and take profits almost immediately, right? Even though we've created tax laws to prevent that, but it will only reduce, not prevent.
Cannot stop,
exactly. So those are the gaps. Yes, there's a 10% mark on stock, whether profits, whether appreciation or depreciation, but it is a market conversation now. People fear sentiment is too high right now, and it's getting intoxicating kind of for people. So if you're going in, you need to have proper knowledge of how the market works, and if possible, get an advisor hand in hand to advise you on what to properly do and when to manage your stocks and how to exit. That helps. And
another thing you can do if you trade stocks is that, though technical, you can actually make money also in a falling market. Because we are in the financial markets and we know that it is very possible, but a little bit technical, but it is possible. So you don't make money only in one way. You can make money while the market is appreciating. I can also make money while the shares is, they are dropping.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, Daniel Efa, and thank you, Economist Abiola. Now let's look at the equities markets and how it is shaping up as we begin the new trading week. Now, the market is coming into the new week on a cautious but stable note. After the strong run we've seen in recent sessions, investors are beginning to slow things down a bit, basically watching and assessing where the next opportunities are. So it's less of aggressive buying and more of measured positioning as the week opens. Now let's look at what is driving the market, because we are also seeing right now that the investors are paying close attention to corporate earnings and broader economic signals, and a lot of positioning in the market at this point is being driven by expectations, especially around how companies are performing and how the economy is evolving. So sectors like banking, consumer goods, and energy are likely to remain in focus as investors decide where to put their money next. market. Now, this is what you need to watch out for this week. Going into the week, there are a few key things to keep an eye on. First is earnings releases, because that will give you clearer direction on valuation. Then there is policy signals and macroeconomic developments, which could influence sentiment. And of course, any global market movements, especially around oil prices and interest rates, could also shape how investors behave locally. So overall, the market remains active, but investors are becoming more selective, and that tells you that this is a phase where you have to put in strategy, because strategy matters now more than momentum. And that is all we have for you today on The Business Lens. Do follow us across our social media platforms for more updates, and don't forget to stick around this channel. Until next time, I am Divine Alex. Bye for now.